Good morning from the Premier Inn T2 and 3 here at London's Heathrow Airport. It's Saturday morning. I've not had a great sleep last night. Definitely nothing to do with the hotel. Just other guests getting up for flights, which I understand they do, but putting the TV up to top volume and banging doors doesn't really assist in sleeping. Of course, I could have used earplugs, but then would have I heard my alarm to get up this morning. Anyway, I've got an 11.5-hour flight ahead of me today, and that means I'll get plenty of rest. And as my work doesn't really start until Tuesday, I'll get plenty of rest before that. So let's just get underway and go to Phoenix. First of all, time for breakfast, and then we'll get out of this room and head over to Heathrow via Uber. Let's go. Hi, I'm Graham, and this is my wife Fiona, and we have always had a work hard, play hard philosophy. From London to New York, and of course the Caribbean, we live our dream through travel. And of course, the odd cocktail. And here on YouTube, we create our memories while living our dream. So come and join us as we share our memories with you. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but on this particular trip to London Heathrow, when I was booking an Uber, I specifically booked Uber Green. And it's not because I've gone all save the planet, but when I booked the Uber from Terminal 5 across to the Premier Inn last night, and again from the Premier Inn this morning over to Terminal 3 where I'm heading now, when I booked both of these Ubers, using Uber Green was definitely slightly cheaper. But quite frankly guys, as an electric car driver myself, electric cars are really suited to this type of flat area in the southeast of England, around Heathrow, and even into central London where there's no congestion charge for EVs. Anyway, not at the time of making this video. However, this grey, damp, miserly morning in London certainly didn't make for easy filming out of the taxi window. But as you can see, things did improve once I was out of the taxi and on my way in to Terminal 3, heading in the direction of the American Airlines check-in area. I've no idea guys, but I had it in my head that American Airlines check-in area here in Terminal 3 was an area G for golf and not D for Delta. So it was actually just a fluke that I went through the door for zones C and D, finding the American Airlines check-in counters here in Zone D. And the really fantastic welcoming staff directed me towards the premium economy check-in counters. And I know this was something I commented on last year when I flew American Airlines from here in Heathrow across to Phoenix. The check-in staff here for American Airlines in Heathrow are all very friendly and efficient, and with the check-in process taking only a few minutes. My bags were on the way to the aircraft, or so I hoped, and I was on my way to the security screening area. And the Virgin check-in hall here in T3 was looking a lot quieter than the last time Fiona and I visited it in July 2022 when we were flying from Terminal 3 across to Jamaica. And remember guys that I'm not travelling in business class or first class today, I'm travelling in premium economy, so you don't get access to fast track. And as you will understand guys, I didn't film the security screening process. So once I was through security screening, I had just over an hour to kill until my flight would be boarding. So my plan right now was to go through to the departures area, grab a coffee and relax before heading to the gate. And because I wasn't with Fiona, I wouldn't be stopping at any of these shops en route. You might remember that last year I did a comparison video between Premium Economy in British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, American Airlines and Delta, all services that I used within a 6-month period crossing the pond. And if you want to watch that video, go back to episode 240, where you will see that I praised American Airlines for their boarding process due to their fantastic communications via regular emails keeping you up to date, including which gate your flight will be departing from, and that is where I'm heading right now. This, guys, is where I get the first view of the aircraft that will be taking me on the 11.5-hour flight across to Phoenix this morning. When you travel to the United States, you've got to expect a little bit extra security screening before heading in to this gate holding area, where boarding would begin very shortly. Like a lot of airlines in this part of the world, American Airlines use a priority boarding based on group numbers, and being in premium economy, I was in group number 4. And boarding this morning's 777-200ER for the flight from London Heathrow across to Phoenix, I was welcomed on board by very friendly American Airlines flight attendants. But unfortunately, on both my American Airlines transatlantic experience in the last year, this is where the excellent onboard customer services ends. Where to begin, guys? Well, seat 15L, which was on the back right hand side of the premium economy cabin. My seat was broken and the footrest was simply knackered. It didn't work at all. Every time I relaxed back into the seat, it fell backwards, and if it wasn't for the partition separating premium economy and economy, I'm sure I could have turned this seat into a flat bed. After all, this was a 24-year-old Boeing 777-200ER. And while I know American Airlines are slowly but surely replacing these old 777-200s with 787-9 Dreamliners, I do think it is pretty poor of American Airlines for not investing in the most basic of passenger comfort. And while I accept it is probably not a safety issue, my own business paid for this premium economy experience across to Phoenix today. And to be quite frank, there was no point telling the crew, but I'll come back to the in-flight service and the cabin crew a little bit later on in this episode, because right now we're taxiing to runway 27 left here at London's Heathrow Airport. Time to pop over to Flight Radar 24 and tell you a little bit about today's routing between London Heathrow and Phoenix Sky Harbour. As I said, we took off on runway 27 left at Heathrow, turning right just after departure in the direction of Slough and Burnham. The initial part of the flight was fairly northbound, staying to the east of Birmingham, therefore over the East Midlands, flying overhead Sheffield and Leeds, then over Northumberland in the direction of the Scottish borders. We then flew overhead Glasgow, which is ironic because that's where my journey started yesterday, before cruising out over the North Atlantic, overhead the Inner Hebrides and then the Outer Hebrides, Lewis and Harris. Our oceanic crossing kept us well south of Iceland, but we did fly over the southern tip of Greenland near Nursarsuaq. We then crossed the Labrador Sea, making landfall overhead North America in Newfoundland. We then crossed Quebec and Ontario, before crossing the border into the United States, overhead Wisconsin. After Wisconsin, we crossed over southern Minnesota, skirting northwest Iowa, then overhead Nebraska and Colorado, and then into New Mexico, where we crossed the state just to the north of Albuquerque. We then crossed into Arizona, where we began our approach into Phoenix Sky Harbor. It was certainly an interesting approach into Phoenix because we flew to the north of the city, staying north of Scottsdale before making a number of left-hand turns, lining up for runway 08, one of the 3 easterly runways here at Phoenix Sky Harbor. And as I said earlier, the flight today was done on board a 24-year-old Boeing 777-200. On today's flight, we're climbing out over the Midlands, heading towards the north of England and Scotland before making our transatlantic crossing. And it wasn't long after takeoff when the crew came round with drinks, and then they started to serve lunch, and that is where it all went very wrong for me. A couple of weeks ago, when I was completing the immigration formalities with American Airlines and reserving my seat here in Premium Economy, I took the opportunity to pre-book a meal, and I ordered the chicken korma. But when the flight attendant came round with the meal trolley, she admitted that she had given away my korma to somebody else. And after a bit of a struggle with the English language, I ended up with this pretty horrible chicken dish from economy. Once again, just like last year, American Airlines only seemed to be offering vegetarian mac and cheese in Premium Economy, and macaroni and cheese is something I particularly dislike, and it is food that I would give a 2-year-old and not someone who spent more than £1,000 on a return flight between London and Phoenix. The caramel tart for dessert was okay, but quite frankly guys, this was all a pretty poor show from American Airlines. On last January's service from London to Phoenix, mac and cheese was also the only dish that it was available in Premium Economy. There was only 64 passengers on that entire aircraft in January 2023, and the cabin service was appalling, with the flight attendants completely absent for most of the flight, and while today's flight was completely full. The American Airlines cabin crew were certainly not able to hide on this particular service, and when I asked what else there was an offer other than macaroni and cheese, I was asked if I could speak English. So guys, for the second year on a row, travelling between London and Phoenix, I have to admit that the American Airlines cabin service was pretty rubbish. And in my opinion, it was simply down to uninterested cabin crew who, like robots, simply wanted to get the food and drinks cart through the cabin as quickly as possible and having to engage the minimum amount possible with their customers. And as we made our way southbound now across Canada towards the United States border, we were offered another drink and ice cream. But when it came to the snack service, approximately 90 minutes before arrival into Phoenix, I just chose a cup of coffee because the only option on offer was a pretty horrible looking salad. And when talking to my seat neighbour, he admitted it was pretty pathetic. So as we started down into Phoenix, I reflected on today's flight on board American Airlines from Heathrow across to Phoenix. Yes, the service departed on time and in fact arrived in Phoenix over half an hour early, but on an old aircraft with a broken seat and no footrest, and a disinterested and robotic cabin crew who gave away the meal that I ordered to another passenger who were on an international flight but clearly couldn't understand an Irish accent. All added together made for a pretty poor flight on today's American Airlines service across the pond. And while the food on board the British Airways service that I took a week later back to London wasn't that great, the cabin service was very good with an extremely engaging cabin crew. And if you want to see that trip report on board a British Airways Airbus A350-1000 from Phoenix back to London, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon to be notified when that video is published in a few weeks' time. So based on my experience of travelling twice between London and Phoenix and back to London again in a 12-month period on both American Airlines and British Airways, given that these two airlines are your only choice between this city pair, I would vote for British Airways only, guys. Don't bother with American. In both my experiences on this service, the American Airlines cabin crew aren't really interested in serving you, their customer. They just want to get through the 11-hour flight doing the bare minimum. And again, from my experience, this is the complete opposite of travelling transatlantic with both British Airways Delta and Virgin, all of which put American Airlines to shame travelling premium economy across the pond. Anyway, enough of me moaning for a while. Let's enjoy the scenery as we make our approach into Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. And yes guys, I know you're probably as shocked as I was seeing clouds over Arizona. Well, there you go guys, we arrived into a pretty dull Phoenix, which matched my mood after this 11-hour flight on board American Airlines from London. So as I made my way through the business class cabin leaving the aircraft, I did wonder if their service was up to standard or not. I don't know why American Airlines is delivering such a poor service these days. And over the last 7 or 8 years, I've used them quite a few times between the UK and the US, and also on some internal flights within the United States. And while their service hasn't been terrible all of the time, I have always felt that as an airline, AA do offer pretty substandard service, mainly down to poor cabin crew. So hopefully that will be my last American Airlines flight for quite a few years now. And after I publish this episode, they'll probably not want to carry me in the future anyway. So as we make our way down to the immigration hall, I'm going to stop this video in a few seconds, and I will come back to you and sum up when I get to my hotel room. Right guys, it is just after 6 p.m. Arizona time, which puts it well after 1 a.m. Back in the UK, so you can imagine I'm pretty tired. I've arrived at my room for the next 2 nights, which is at the McCormick Scottsdale. So what's going to happen is my VP of Sales, Tom France, who you've met on the channel many times before, Tom and I are going to be staying here at this hotel for 2 nights. And then the rest of the team are coming in on Monday, and we will be off to an Airbnb, which happens to be a 5-bedroom house on this very resort. That's the McCormick Golf and Villas Resort here in Scottsdale in Arizona. Okay, how would I sum up American Airlines? You know, quite frankly, guys, they are the absolute pits. Without a doubt, in my opinion, the worst airline that you can choose to cross the Atlantic in. 777-200 is old, hasn't been maintained. My seat was wrecked. The footrest wouldn't come up. I specifically pre-ordered the chicken korma, or was it tikka masala? Can't remember. And the flight attendant just waved it off and said, I'm sorry, but I gave it to somebody else. How can you give a meal that I ordered at my seat 15L to somebody else? It just is astonishing, guys. And then a flight attendant later on in the flight asked me if I could speak English. Yeah, I don't know what to say. The American Airlines, that's twice I've used them in the last year, and twice I've got to admit they are complete rubbish. And would I ever use them again? I think I would have to be really hard up to use American. I'm going back in British Airways. I'm going to check in for that flight actually tonight, because that's me at my 7 days. The guy I was sitting beside told me he was able to book an upgrade from premium economy to business class for £310. If I can do something like that, guys, later tonight, I will do it. So this is my room in the McCormick. It's pretty standard. It's, you know, it's not a fantastic room. It's, you can say it's a bit of a budget room, typical to
queen size beds. Looks like a telephone out of the 1970s. Anyway, coffee making facilities and a TV. Just on through here there's a little wardrobe and a safe. There is an ironing board and an iron. Yep, ironing board and an iron. And then you're into the bathroom. So bath with a shower, toilet and a sink. You know, what else do I need? I'm here on business. Tom is due in from Knoxville via Dallas. I think he said he arrives in Phoenix at about 8:30. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get down, get myself something to eat because I'm absolutely starving. I'll have a few beers and I'll hang around for a couple of hours until Tom arrives, see him, and then I'm going to get some shut-eye. No rush to get up in the morning. Sunday, Tom and I are going to do a little bit of work and then head into Old Town Scottsdale for the day. So that's it for Saturday, guys. May get back to you a little bit later. If there's anything else to tell you, I might try and show you some photographs of my evening meal. And once I'm in America, you know what I'm going to have? I'm going to have one of my favourite foods ever. Something I do nearly every time I arrive in the US. I'm going to have what's called on the menu, the All-American Burger. Yep, guys, it's a burger for me tonight. I'm pretty darn sure. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks.